Good morning, everybody. Today we're going to talk about the nervous system. Before we begin, I will say the answer to the most important question in here, which is, what is actually the nervous system? Well, the nervous system ensures the body control functions and helps the different parts of the body for them to work together. Introduction to the nervous system. Have you ever wondered about the precision and coordination that is needed for a simple daily task such as driving a car? Well, it requires coordination of planned movements with many parts of our body, such as in both feet, both hands, sense of touch, hearing, time and speed, your vision, and calculation of space. But what system allows us to have such incredible precision and coordination to perform this activity and many others? Well, the answer to this question is the nervous system. The nervous system has the responsibility for carrying out intellectual functions. What are intellectual functions? They are memory, emotions, dreams, and thoughts. Division of the nervous system. The nervous system divides into two parts: central nervous system and peripheral nervous system. The central nervous system is the one that is comprised of the brain and the spinal cord that make up a large part of the entire nervous system. Okay, the functions of the central nervous system are the transmission of this impulse and effectors to the skeletal muscles, production of impulse effectors or receptors, transmission of nerve impulses to sensory processing centers, and also the perception of stimulus from the exterior world. The peripheral nervous system includes all the nerves outside the central nervous system and is further subdivided into two systems, which are the somatic nervous system and the autonomic system, which will be later taught during the presentation. The cerebellum. It is made up of millions of nervous cells. It is important because it helps us with the process of digestion, breathing, emotions, and the processing of information. The cerebellum is like a jelly-like mass contained within the skull and is made of three structures, including the brain, the medulla, and the cerebellum. Okay, now the brain. The brain has multiple functions in addition to being pretty remarkable. Your brain is the basic control center of your entire body. It has numerous and lots of jobs. A few of these will include its ability to control the five senses, our movement, etc. The brain is also broken into two parts, the dorsolateral and inferior lateral. The cerebral cortex. The cerebral cortex is a vital component of the brain and is responsible for bodily functions that will be difficult to live without. It has multiple folds. Each fold is called a convolution, which is separated by sulci or furrows. It is made up of a gray substance and contains approximately 10,000 million different types of neurons.
Sensory area. General sensory. Hearing. Visuals. Smell and taste. Motor area. Primary motor and premotor. Association area. Oral language or Broca's area. Written language or Wernicke's area. Cerebral hemisphere. The cortex is divided into two halves. The right side is called the right hemisphere and the left side is called the left hemisphere. The two hemispheres are connected by a structure called the...
Okay, summarizing what Angel is saying, the purpose of each brain hemisphere is to control different functions, such as language or perception of spatial relationship. Okay, the right brain functions is art awareness, creativity, imagination, insight, and left hand control, while the left brain functions are analytic thoughts, logic, language, reasoning, and right hand control.
Cerebral lobes. Each hemisphere can be divided into 4 different lobes that have been given the name of the bone that they protect. Occipital lobe resides in the visual cortex and therefore implies our capacity to see and interpret what we see. Parietal lobe. It plays an important role in the process of sensory information coming from different parts of the body. Temporal lobes. The main function of the lobe has to do with memory. Is involved in the recall of words and name of objects. Frontal lobe is related to the control of impulse, judgment, the production of language, memory. Fun fact: over time, the human cortex undergoes a process of corticalization. This process is due to the vast knowledge that the human brain accumulates over time. Therefore, the more richly your brain, the smarter and more intelligent you are. Summarizing, medulla oblongata, Pulkin's extension of the spinal cord that controls involuntary movement. Cerebellum, the center of equilibrium and controls involuntary movement. Brain, it receives information from sensory organs and is the place where our memories, intelligence, and feelings reside.
Protection of the central nervous system. This delicate system needs adequate protection to keep all of its structures in perfect working order. This protection is provided by our bones, meninges, and cerebrospinal fluid. Bone protection. The brain is housed in our body's head, protected by a set of bones that is known as a skull. The skull is made up of 8 bones, 4 of which are impaired and 4 of which are paired. For example, we have the frontal bone, parietal bone, temporal bone, occipital bone, sphenoid bone, and the ethmoid bone. The spinal column is made up of 24 bones, in adults, known as vertebrae. These bones have a hollow center and are joined together, one on top of the next, to form a duct in which the spinal cord is housed and protected. The spinal column also provides support and stability to the trunk of the body. This provides attachment points for the muscles of the back and ribs. Some cartilage, called intervertebral discs, located between one vertebrae and the next, have the function of absorbing impact during activities such as walking, running, and jumping, allowing flexibility and extension. To refer to the vertebrae individually, they are named by the first letter of the section in which they are located, according to the numerical order in which the vertebrae is found. In this way, we have the C1, C2, C3 for cervical vertebrae, T1 and others for the thoracic vertebrae, L1, L2 and others for the lumbar, and S1, S2 and others for the sacral vertebrae. Meninges protection. The meninges are 3 different membranes that cover the brain and the spinal cord and protect the nervous system. The meninges consist of the pia mater, arachnoid mater, and the dura mater. The pia mater, meaning soft mother, is the closest membrane to the brain. It is soft and thin and covers the brain and the spinal cord like a layer of glue, following every curve and contour, and it is also impervious to liquids and is placed within a network of tiny blood vessels called capillaries that supply blood to the brain and the spinal cord. The arachnoid mater is similar to a network and rests between the pia mater and the dura mater. Unlike the pia mater, the arachnoid matter covers the brain loosely. Like the pia mater, it is also impervious to liquids. The arachnoid matter is also made up of long strands that adhere to the pia mater. In between the pia mater and the arachnoid matter is an area known as a subarachnoid space, which contains the cerebrospinal fluid. The dura mater, or strong mother, is the layer of meninges that is closest to the skull, resting on the superior part of the arachnoid membrane. It is attached to the skull at various points. The dura mater is made up of fibrous material that protects the brain like a tight-fitting lid. Due to the fact that it is attached to the skull, the dura mater also inhibits the brain from moving around inside the skull.
Conditions and treatments of meninges. The most well-known condition that can affect the meninges is called meningitis, or the viral or bacterial infection of the meninges. Meningitis causes the meninges to swell up and is generally treated with antibiotics. Another condition that affects meninges that can be mentioned is hematoma, or bleeding in the subarachnoid space. Cerebrospinal fluid is a clear and colorless substance that protects the brain and spinal cord from physical and chemical harm. This fluid continuously circulates through the brain and spinal cavities in the subarachnoid space. Functions: transports oxygen and glucose from the blood to neurons and neuroglia. It brings mechanical support and stability to the brain. Allows for the exchange of nutrients and waste products between the blood and nerve tissue. Composition: the fluid is made up of water as its main component, proteins, glucose working as the brain's food, vitamins, hormones, lymphocytes, electrolytes, and peptides. Production and elimination. Its production is around 400 to 500 milliliters per day, 0.5 milliliters per minute. Spinal tap, also known as lumbar puncture or punción lumbar in Spanish, is a process that doctors commonly use to collect CSF to determine the presence of an illness or injury. Hydrocephalus. This is the accumulation of cerebrospinal fluid in the skull, which causes swelling to the brain. Too much CSF puts pressure on the brain, which pushes it upward against the skull and damages cerebral tissue.
First, we have the limbic system, and it is part of the brain that specializes in emotions, learning, and memory. Also, the limbic system operates by influence on the endocrine system and the autonomic nervous system. Then we have the hypothalamus that acts as a connector between the endocrine and the nervous system to achieve this. Then the hippocampus, which is associated with the function of feeling and reacting. And also the cerebral amygdala is responsible for the perception of emotions such as anger, fear, or sadness. Then the pituitary gland, its product help regulate important functions as a ground blood pressure and reproduction. And then we have some subdivision of the peripheral nervous system. This is made of neurons that are of white color and have that shape as a cord. That subdivision is somatic nervous system, autonomous nervous system, sympathetic nervous system, and the parasympathetic nervous system. And to finish, we have some illness that affect the nervous system. Some of these are epilepsy, multiple sclerosis, infections, degenerations, trauma, tumors, and the structural effects. Some of these, many of these now have a sure cure to protect the nervous system of other type of person.